Good morning, Michael Jamnetsky. If we could do a microphone check and a camera check, please.
Good morning. Can you see and hear me?
I can. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. The time is 9 a.m. I call to order the March 25th, 2021 meeting of the Contractor State Licensing Board. My name is David Del Torre, CSLB's board chair. Board members, we will be using cameras during the meeting. To mitigate any potential bandwidth issues, we ask that you turn off your video camera when you are not speaking. When you would like to comment during the meeting, please turn on your camera and select the raise your hand icon in the WebEx application. I will call on board members to speak. When called upon, please unmute yourself, and when finished, return to mute and turn off your camera. Shelley Jones is our host and moderator today. This is the third time Shelley has moderated the CSLB's board meeting. Shelley, welcome back. Also joining us today, you're welcome. Also joining us today is Registrar David Fote, Chief Deputy Registrar Tanya Corcoran, CSLB staff, and our board legal counsel, Jason Hurtado. With that said, we can begin. Feliz, roll call, please.
David Del Torre.
Here.
Kevin Albanese.
Here.
Frank Altamira.
Here.
Buggy Beltran.
Here.
Ronnie Cobos.
Here.
Miguel Galarza.
Here.
Don Giortano.
Here.
Susan Granzella.
Here.
Diana Love.
Here.
Michael Mark.
Here.
Jimmy Wayne.
Here.
Johnny Simpson.
Here.
Nancy Springer. I believe is running late. Mary Tyker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Outstanding. Okay, at this time, I ask that you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is an update on the establishment of a board officer nomination committee. July 1st, 2021 will mark the beginning of a new fiscal year, as well as terms for our board secretary, vice chair, and chair. Under board rules, I have appointed Kevin Albanese and Johnny Simpson to the nomination committee. Kevin and Johnny will recommend a slate of officers for board member consideration. The board will elect new officers at the June board meeting. Board members will be surveyed for interest in serving as board officer, committee chair, and committee assignment for next fiscal year, July 2021 through June 2022. The board chair elected at the June quarterly board meeting will make the committee appointments. Staff will survey board members in April. Are there any board member questions? Shelley, please check to see if there are any members of the public who wish to comment.
This is the moderator. If you'd like to make a public comment, you can click on the Q&A icon on your screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," into the ask field. Or you may also use your raised hand feature. And I am not seeing anything at this time.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item B, which is for public comment and to request agenda items for future meetings. The board values public input as part of our consumer protection mission. To allow us enough time to conduct our full schedule of business today, I'm limiting public comments to 3 minutes apiece. If your comments don't involve an item on today's agenda, this would be the time where you can make them. If you have comments on one of our agenda items, we encourage you to wait until we get to that item. We will give you an opportunity to make your comments at that time. We also ask that your public comment relate to the agenda item currently before the board. There are a few other rules that apply. First, California law prohibits board members from discussing any matter brought up during public comment, and board members are not allowed to act on any item not on today's agenda. Second, if you want the board to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you can ask us to consider placing that issue on the agenda of a future meeting. And finally, if you have an application, complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the board, we ask that you not discuss the details of your case or pending complaint. That's because board members may be the judges, and by law are not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not part of the administrative record in the case. Members of the public, if you are with us on WebEx and would like to make a comment, use the chat feature to send the host a note that you would like to offer public comment. If you are joining us on the phone and would like to make a public comment, press *9. We will take the WebEx comments first, followed by telephone comments. We will use the same system throughout the meeting for public comment during each agenda item. You will find instructions on how you can make public comments on the agenda for this meeting posted on our CSLB website. Board members, are there any comments? Shelley, any public comments?
I'm seeing nothing in the chat, nothing in the Q&A, and no hand raises.
Okay. Next is agenda item C, presentation of certificates of recognition. Today, we are recognizing former board member Marlo Richardson. During her tenure, Marlo has chaired the Public Affairs, Enforcement, and Licensing Committees. She also served as Secretary, Vice Chair, and Chair during our last sunset hearing. I will now read the plaque. Presented to Marlo Richardson, Contractor State Licensing Board Member from 2015 to 2020 and Board Chair 2018 to 2019. In recognition of your outstanding contributions to the Contractor State Licensing Board, the people of California, and to the construction industry, thank you for a job well done. Would any board member like to make a comment? Seeing none.
I would, Dave, I thank you, Marlo. I don't know if she's on the panel or can talk, but I really enjoyed serving with you, Marlo. You did a hell of a job. Great mom. To learn from you. So thank you very much, and good luck to you.
Any other comments from the board?
This is Johnny. I would also like to thank you, Marlo, for everything you've done. It's been a pleasure to serve with you, and I respect you and hope everything goes well for you.
Okay, I don't see any raised hands. Anybody else? So I understand that Registrar Foat would like to make some comments. The floor is yours, Dave.
Well, thank you, Mr. Delatorre. I want to thank Marlo for going above and beyond to support staff. Marlo attended many staff trainings. She participated in training, and she also provided training recommendations. And one thing I learned from Marlo is she really perfected the art of catching an early morning flight from LAX. She'd come up to Sacramento, participate in the training and go back later that afternoon. So Marlo, on behalf of CSLB staff, thank you for all that you did during your 10 years as a board member.
Okay. Thank you, David. And just a quick comment also, Marlo, I know we got on the board roughly around the same time, and just want to thank you for your service and your time to this board. Shelley, are there any public comments?
I am not seeing any at this time.
Okay. We'll move on to agenda item D. The review and possible approval of board meeting minutes and committee meeting summary reports. We will begin with the December 10th, 2020 board meeting minutes, which begin on page 11.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any board members have any comments? Seeing none. Shelley, any public comment?
Again, this is a reminder, if you'd like to make a public comment, you may utilize the chat. You may also access the Q&A by clicking on the Q&A icon on your screen, or the hand raise feature is also activated, and I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay, Felice, roll call.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamira,
Yes.
Lucky Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobos,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
Aye.
Don Giordano,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Michael Mark,
Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Tiger.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next is the review and approval of the February 4th, 2021 board meeting minutes, which begin on page 27. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any board comments? Seeing none. Shelley, any public comments?
Seeing none at this time.
Felice, roll call, please.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamira.
Aye.
Lucky Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobos,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
Aye.
Don Giordano,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Michael Mark,
Yes.
Jimmy Wayne,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Tiger.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Okay, next is a review and approval of the Enforcement Committee Summary Report, which begin on page 33. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve?
Is there- Are there any board comments? Seeing none. Shelley, any public comment?
And no chats, no Q&As, and no hand raises, none at this time.
Roll call for Felice.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamira.
Aye.
Lucky Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobos,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
Aye.
Don Giordano,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Michael Mark,
Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Tiger.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Finally is the review and approval of the Legislative Committee Summary Report, which begins on page 39. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, great. Is there any board comments? Seeing none, any public comment?
I am seeing none at this time.
Elise, roll call, please.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamiro,
Aye.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobos,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
Aye.
Don Giordano,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Michael Mark,
Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Tykert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you, Felice. Okay, next is the Registrar's report. Before I turn it over to Registrar David Vogt, I'd like to comment on the 2020 accomplishments and activities report. 2020 had many challenges for the California construction industry and CSLB. In spite of the challenges, CSLB had many noteworthy accomplishments throughout all divisions. The board has faced staff shortages, and many staff have willingly taken on additional duties to continue serving consumers, applicants, and licensees. I want to thank our staff for their continued service. Registrar Vogt, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Chair Delatorre. I'd like to begin regarding the board meeting schedule. As many of you know, for the last 11 years, we've had a joint meeting in June with the Nevada Contractors Board. Last June, we met by teleconference. This year, the Nevada Board has asked that we meet in person. However, recognizing that we're still in a state of emergency due to the health pandemic, it doesn't lend itself to having an in-person meeting in June. But we're optimistic that we will be able to meet in person in September. And so all board members were provided a survey by Tanya Corcoran earlier this week. And I understand we've received 8 responses. She'll be following up to confirm your availability for a June meeting and also for a September meeting. And then hopefully everything will go well and we can meet in December somewhere in the Bay Area, so that can be coordinated with, with other functions. So we are hopeful that we'll be able to share the results with all of you on or before April the 12th. I did want to provide an update regarding the battery energy storage system consultant that we've hired. As you know, we contracted in December with UC Berkeley, and the contract requires that UC Berkeley consider the battery energy storage system, or BESS, risk, hazard, size, and complexity, and potential harm to the public. And is that harm something that is of consideration for occurring in the future, and is regulation necessary to amend the existing classifications that could do it, or should it be restricted in some way? Also, they're going to be looking at the applicability of state and national standards and to the codes that would apply to the installation of the batteries. And what economic impact would a restriction on the solar class's ability, or any classification for that matter, to be able to install the battery? So we're looking at the economic impact. And then finally, looking at the knowledge, skills, and training as it relates to safely installing the battery systems. March 12th, Mike Jemnensky and I met with UC Berkeley to check in with them and see what the status, how their study was coming along. And we were very pleased that the study is underway, and they will be reaching out two stakeholders, and we anticipate that occurring in April. The stakeholders being the electrical industry, the solar industry. We've encouraged them to speak with the California building officials and also the Division of Apprenticeship Standards, or now I guess they're called Division of Labor Standards Enforcement, as it relates to any applicable training requirements. So that would be my update on where we're at with the consultant that was hired to review the battery energy storage systems. I did want to add a little bit to what David said regarding the activity and accomplishment report. So just real briefly, I just want to thank the board for playing an active role in developing objectives that really helped us achieve quite a few consumer protection measures in the last year. And that was somewhat challenging because of the health pandemic, but still much was accomplished. And if you have a chance to read the report, what you'll find is that there was a very successful transition to a telework environment. We were able to move very quickly to provide the equipment the staff needed to work from home and continue to provide a high level of service to consumers and to industry. We were able to implement new licensing process changes by automating the sole owner renewals. So we're real excited about that, hoping to expand that soon into other types of licenses, but it makes for the renewal process much simpler and quicker for our licensees. And the applicant workshop's been very helpful in explaining the license requirements to help those that would benefit the industry by obtaining a license, obtain that license. The enforcement program has done well with issuing the letters of admonishment. Kevin Albanese, the enforcement committee chairs, can provide statistics to show how successful they were in 2020, even though, for the most part, many of the field work was curtailed for a considerable length of time. And I want to touch, just to close out, I want to touch on the legislation. The board sponsored 4 bills, and they all significantly benefit the public. And all 4 of those bills were chaptered, approved by the legislature. They went to the governor signed the bill. So real excited about that. The first one is for enhanced enforcement. Safety in the tree industry provides us clear authority now to take action when a tree contractor is not providing the training and the safety equipment that their workers need and really required to do that work safely. So we'll be able to take disciplinary action when appropriate. We're going to be able to outsource our test administration. So that's going to be beneficial. We can join up with the Department of Consumer Affairs to have an outside vendor administer our examinations. We were able to create a residential remodeling classification, and we all know that's going to be extremely beneficial in helping to meet the needs of consumers that are looking for the more smaller residential remodeling projects that don't require rough framing or rough carpentry. And finally, the renewal process, something that is of great concern, is that sometimes many contractors don't renew timely, might be a week late. Now we have the clear authority to retroactively renew that license. So I hope you'll take a look at the activity and accomplishment report. We prominently displayed it on the first page of the website. It's under the tab titled What's New. So that would be my update. That's the registrar update. Thank you.
Okay, David, thank you for your report. Now we'll move on to the budget update. Stacy Paul, kindly provide your update.
Thank you, Board Chair, and good morning, everyone. On page 49 begins your budget update. The first chart shows our fiscal year 2021 budget and expenditures through January. No big surprises. In fact, we're continuing to meet our goal of reducing expenses to ensure that the board has enough cash flow to continue operations until a fee increase can be secured. As you can see, to date, we've expended 53% of our budget, keeping us on track to spend about the same as last year at $66 million on total board expenditures. The chart directly below shows our revenue through January. As you can see, we're up over the prior year by 14.5%. This is mostly due to the emergency fee increase of $50 last year in February. However, as you can see, we are seeing a steady increase in licensees paying delinquent fees. If you flip the page, the chart highlights our final budget with adjustments for this fiscal year, which was decreased by $3.3 million, mainly due to the employee pay cut of roughly 9%. Moving on to the next item, talks about our budget drill we recently did to achieve 5% cut to our budget for next year. At the top of the page, or top of page 51, you can see our target was $550,000. Thankfully, with the passage of AB 3087, which Dave previously just mentioned, is the outsourcing of exam administration, those savings were easily identified due to the closing of 2 testing facilities along with their vacant positions over the next 18 months. The chart below is the board approved $7.1 million in expense reductions. The column on the right is the blue that reflects the savings that we've realized through January. As you can see, overall, $6 million in savings, and we're definitely on target to meet the goal of $7.1 million and possibly exceed it. If you flip the page, this is our fund condition, which projects out to budget year 21-22. If you look at the current year, which is 2021, in the middle column, our projected revenue for this year is $72 million. And directly below that is our projected expenses at $71 million. Keep in mind that also includes the $7.1 million in reductions in board expenses that we already talked about. If you look at the last column, this reflects our projected for budget year without any major cost savings, which we know that we did this year. As you can see, the expenditures will outpace revenue, still leaving us structurally imbalanced and in desperate need of a fee increase by next year end. On the next page, I'm happy to report that the Department of Finance has approved our budget change proposal for the construction management account, and it's currently going through the legislative budget hearing for consideration in next year's budget. If approved, it would give CSLB the flexibility to increase or decrease our grant awards to educational institutions based on the contributions received annually. The chart directly below is that CMEA fund condition account. And you can see we're bringing in more revenue than we're allowed to disperse. So that is why the BCP was necessary to address this issue. Lastly, let me quickly touch on the statistical summary details on the next 3 pages. No big surprises from last time. We're still seeing a decline in new apps and the issuance of new licenses, but that's mainly due to the pandemic and the shutdown of exam administration over the last few months. During this time, though, thankfully, renewals have stayed steady as we're still seeing an 8% increase over 2 years and 16% increase over last year. That concludes the budget update. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Stacey, for that report. Are there any board comments? Shelley, any public comment?
I am not seeing any at this time.
Okay, no board action is required, so we'll move on to the next agenda item. Item D4, the Administrative and Information Technology Overview, and the review and discussion of the Administration and Information Technology 2019-2021 Strategic Plan. Tanya, please update the board.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. On page 59 is the Administrative and Information Technology Overview. So this overview is a new document. It was created just to provide the board a detailed summary of roles, responsibilities, and activities by division. So you'll see this document, type of document at the beginning of each division's program update. And as you can see, the administrative division encompasses a range of duties that support board operations. It includes budgets, personnel, business services, mailroom, warehouse, cashiering, imaging services, and risk management. And our Information Technology Division includes network and infrastructure services, IT-related purchases, IT security, network support, IT programs and systems, and processing documents for Public Records Act requests and public data requests. So moving to the strategic plan update, just wanted to advise the board that the IT strategic plan objectives are not in your board packet today. They will be reviewed with the IT Advisory Committee, which is Frank Altamura and Susan Granzella, and a report provided to the full board at the June board meeting. With that, I'll now turn it over to our CSLB's Administrative Chief, Mike Maliza, to cover the administration objectives.
Thank you, Chief Deputy Registrar Corcoran. Good morning, Chair De La Torre, and good morning, members of the board. The administration objectives start on page 65 of your board packet. All the items, and it continues on to page 67, all the items have been completed except there's two items, item 5.7 and item 5.8, that are still in progress. I'll go over those real quick. Item 5.7, the description there is to standardize human resource processes to increase efficiency in regard to personnel matters. The target date on that item is July of 2021. The current status, we are on schedule with that. Staff is in the process of creating a supervisory section for CSLB's intranet. Tools such as frequently answered questions, checklists, etc., will be uploaded to this section for supervisors to reference. But yes, we are ongoing. I don't see any problem hitting that target date of July 2021. Next is item 5.8. The description there is enhancing the onboarding and orientation program for new staff members, managers, and board members. So that also entails producing an onboarding video and adding tools and resources on the intranet. The target date on that one was February 2021. Because of social distancing and some staff resourcing, we were unable to hit that target date, but we are on course again. That should be completed by next month, and I am confident that at our June board meeting, I will report that that has been completed. So, and the rest of the items again are on the following pages. So that concludes my update on the strategic plans. I can answer any questions that you might have right now.
Thank you, Tanya and Mike. Are there any board comments, questions? Okay, seeing none. Shelley, any public member like to make a comment?
Again, this is a reminder, if you'd like to make a comment, you may utilize the chat feature. You may click on the Q&A icon on your screen and text into the ask field, or the hand raise feature is also activated, and I'm not seeing anything at this time.
Okay, as this is informational, no board action is required. We'll move on to our next agenda item. D5, administrative update. Administration Chief Mike Maliza, please update the board.
Again, thank you, Chair. The Administration Division update begins on page 71 of your board packet, and I'll begin with the personnel unit. So during the second quarter of fiscal year 2021, CSLB personnel staff completed 37 personnel transactions. This includes the addition of 5 new employees from other state agencies, 2 employees new to state service. Within CSLB, 21 employees were promoted and 8 transferred to different units or designations. And 1 student assistant also joined CSLB, so that's great news. You can look at the total number of personnel transactions per quarter compared with the previous fiscal year, 2019-20, on that page as well. Moving on to page 72, I will go over the vacancies. So during the second quarter of fiscal year 2021, CSLB averaged 49 vacancies. Moving down under career development, that's also on page 72. Personnel staff participated in CSLB's Career Development Live event held in February 2021. The event was the first in a series of online events launched by the CSLB Career Development and Mentoring Program Steering Committee. The events are an opportunity for staff to learn about each of CSLB's divisions, such as the role and function of the division, the types of classifications utilized in the division, potential career paths, and training opportunities. During this event, CSLB personnel staff spoke about the types of duties it performs on a regular, just a day-to-day basis, such as working on recruitments, employee benefits, onboarding of new hires, and health and safety issues. The business services units of the administration division also spoke of their roles and day-to-day duties and career opportunities. These events will be continue, and we'll highlight other divisions in the near future. So moving on to the business services activities, that starts on page 74. There's a list of activities that includes facilities, contracts, and procurements, both on page 74 and 75. However, I will highlight the first bullet on page 74 under facilities regarding our Valencia office. So CSLB, DCA, and the Department of General Services identified a new location for our Valencia office. The lease was not renewed because the property owners had other plans. So we had to work with DCA and DGS on finding a new site. We did find a new site. The construction began in June 2020. Movers arrived on December 17th to relocate all office items, furniture, equipment, etc., to the new location in Santa Clarita. The Valencia office staff moved into the new suite at 25360 Magic Mountain Parkway, Suite 250 in Santa Clara on December 18th. So that project is now completed, and that concludes my report for the activities for the administration division. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have for me at this time.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks again, Mike. Are there any comments from the board? Okay, seeing none. Shelley, any public comment?
I am not seeing anything at this time.
Again, this is informational, so no action is required from the board. And we'll move on to the next agenda item. D6. Next is our information technology update. Before we hear the staff update, I understand that the IT Advisory Committee met last week. Susan or Frank, would you like to provide some brief comments?
I'll go ahead. Frank, is that all right?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. Frank and I, board member Frank Altamura and I resumed our IT technology meeting to get a current update on what was going to be presented to the board, as well as some underlying issues that we needed to discuss. I'm happy to report that Deputy Registrar Corcoran and Chief of Information Technology, Jason Paris, have done a great job this past year. And so what we did is we reviewed the current technology. We also made comments about in the future, including other board relevant points so that we could get that information through. And then something we did last year was still very important, and things have changed since our last report on the architecture. So we had alluded to and completed a lot of connections, new organizational servers and support that was offered by IT at DCA. And they have indeed done that. We've still maintained our independence as far as our systems here. But what needs to be updated to the board was where we are today. What is our risk? Where are the systems kept? How are we protecting those systems? And also, how are we connecting with DCA and the state of California under the rules and regulations? Well, it'll be a brief report, but I think it's important that we as board members know where our data is stored and how it's protected. So we will include that in our next board meeting, which will also have other fun facts, of course. And but in the report that Jason and Jason Perez is going to be presenting, it begins on page 79, and it's a great reminder of the progress CSLB can make. We have talked about online, being able to do online registration and payments, and so I think it's a great report. So I'll turn this over to both Tanya, Deputy Registrar, and Jason Perez. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Jason, I'm going to go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Board Member Susan Granzella. Thank you for that. So today, I would like to say good morning, and first to let you know that our information technology update begins on page 79. However, first I would like to highlight a few of the changes that the CSLB team has done, and that is on the website. Kevin, could you please show our first screenshot? So first here, to better assist our constituents of California, CSLB has moved the Google Translate feature from the bottom of the website to the top to increase the visibility of this feature and to demonstrate this website's accessibility to a broader audience. The second change, which is the next slide, is the new alerts section. We added this section to provide a place for posting important information from the department and the administration. Currently, the messaging is centered around increasing awareness for COVID-19 testing and vaccination information. And third, and lastly, at the bottom of the website is a new link to the California Grants portal. This website is available to contractors to review the available California business grants to support their businesses. We'll now return back to the board packet and start at page 79. The online renewal statistics chart provides a breakdown of the sole owner renewals in the first column, the e-kiosk application, which it currently accepts payments for all non-sole owner renewal applications. And then the last column is our HIAS, Home Improvement Salesperson's online renewals. As a whole, online renewals continue to be a successful, where approximately 40% of all renewals are processed through our website. And to increase the functionality of our online services, as of January, we are now able to process citation payments online. This was a successful collaboration between the Enforcement Division and IT, and to date, the website has processed over $80,000 in citation payments. January continued to be a very busy month for us, as we also implemented retroactive renewals into our licensing system. We are now able to automatically update the record of an expired license up to 90 days after expiration, if renewal fees are paid and the renewal is completed. The license history will not reflect a break in licensure. Continuing to page 80, I would like to highlight that CSLB IT completed its biannual IT military assessment this month. While we had a technical closeout summary meeting with the assessment team at the completion of it, the final debrief will be available May of 2021 and will be summarized at our next board meeting. The chart on page 80 shows our progress on security enhancements. The higher priority items have been completed and progress is being made on all items still. Our scheduled 2021 projects are on page 81, demonstrating this year's business modernization timeline, with the remaining two being the online renewal single qualifier and testing administration transition to a third-party vendor. This concludes the information technology update. I'm available if the board has any questions.
Great. Jason, Susan, thank you for that update. Are there any board comments? Oh, and by the way, the enhancements to the website should make it a little bit easier to navigate through there. So, thanks. Shelley, any public comment?
I believe Member Kobos has a comment for Jason.
Good morning. Thank you. I just want to say, I know Jason mentioned that he's been busy the last year or so, but I think I've been keeping him busy the last quarter, and I just want to say thanks. With the many challenges I have in life, one of them is the IT department. So I just want to say thanks to Jason for helping me out and get me squared away when I do have IT problems. So, Jason, thank you.
You're welcome.
And
Okay.
with that, I'm not seeing any other requests for comment.
Okay. Again, that was informational. No action required from the board. We are now on the enforcement section of our agenda. I turn it over to Enforcement Committee Chair Kevin Albanese.
Thank you very much, Chair De La Torre. This is the enforcement overview, which starts on page 87 of your packet. In the absence of recently retired Enforcement Chief Missy Vickery, I will take the lead on highlighting the enforcement agenda items. Supervising Investigator 2 Peace Officer, Jesse Flores, is available to answer any technical questions. The recruitment bulletin to fill the vacant Enforcement Chief position was released on Tuesday. The Enforcement Division provides public protection by enforcing contractor license law requirements. It provides methods for receiving and processing consumer complaints, investigating contractors, and providing avenues to pursue financial redress for consumers harmed by contractors. The CSLB opens up around 20,000 complaints year after year. And although 2020 saw a 17% decrease in complaints, even though 2020 saw a decrease in complaints, every year around 20% of the complaints are proactive or filed against unlicensed contractors. The CSLB Enforcement Division staff constitutes more than half of the full board staff. The division is organized into 5 areas: intake and mediation centers, investigation centers and special investigations units, statewide investigative fraud team, which is SWIFT, disciplinary enforcement services, and the quality assurance unit. There are 9 objectives in the 2019-2021 strategic plan, beginning on page 89. Status has been provided for each objective, confirming that 3 of the objectives are complete, while 6 of them are ongoing. I will take this opportunity to highlight just 2 objectives. Objective 2.4 is ongoing and is specific to the effort to identify workers' compensation violations and unlicensed contracting through social media activities and advertisements. While I'm optimistic the board-sponsored legislation will be successful to mandate workers' compensation insurance for all licensees, I thank staff for the continued focus on protecting consumers from unlicensed and uninsured practice. Objective 2.6 has a target date of December 2021 for the creation of an online licensee education in collaboration with the Public Affairs and Licensing Division. To date, they have developed a building permit compliance video and are currently working on an educational tool for the home improvement salesperson, registration, and home improvement contract requirements. Consumer and industry benefit greatly by CSLB's efforts to educate licensees on permit and contracting requirements. This brings us to the enforcement program update, which starts on page 95 with the vacancy update and summary of the implementation of expense reduction strategies. As of November 1st, 2020, 26 enforcement positions were vacant. In addition, 15 enforcement staff are currently redirected to assist counties with COVID-19 contract tracing. Ordinarily, staff would not delay in filling vacancies. However, the effort to do so is in part of the board's approved expense reduction plan. On page 95, you will see a status update of the expense reduction strategies based on billings between July 1st, 2020 and January 31st, 2021. Attorney General expenses are currently averaging $540,000 per month, which is below the $580,000 goal. Arbitration billings are currently averaging $48,000 a month, with the goal being $45,000 per month. And the goal to keep industry expert expenses at less than $50,000 a month is being met, as they are averaging only 15. Enforcement staff have worked hard to implement the expense reduction strategies, and for the most part have been successful. In addition, enforcement staff have implemented several strategies to improve legal action effectiveness and reduce costs, including increasing the utilization of letters of admonishment and informal office conferences with licensees for less serious and standalone offenses that do not include a financial injury. This is instead of incurring the cost of AG representation for a formal citation and possible appeal hearing before an administrative law judge. You can see the improvements of this in this area on page 95 and 96 in the packet. Further, as part of the expense reduction plan, staff began implementing a board-approved alternative dispute resolution plan for less egregious consumer complaints in June of 2020. This involved referral of these less egregious complaints to small claims and surety bond rather than the traditional CSLB mediation attempts. However, given the decrease in overall complaints received in 2020, the unpopularity of the program, and CSLB's success with expense reduction in other areas, staff suspended this program last month. This means that CSLB is back to business as usual, attempting to mediate those less egregious consumer complaints. Investigation highlights begin on page 97 with two examples of successful mediations that led to satisfied consumers and contractors. Staff mediation resulted in more than $21 million of restitution to financially injured parties last calendar year. An example of revocation resulting from investigation of 3 consumer complaints can be found at the bottom of the page. In another case, on page 98, CSLB was instrumental in assisting the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office in an unfair business practice case. The complex investigation involved a contractor associating with an unlicensed contractor to obtain solar contracts under the name of Echo Solar Home Improvement. CSLB staff investigated 16 consumer complaints, many of which included allegations of false email accounts established by Echo Solar to obtain the property assessed clean energy financing, otherwise known as the PACE loan. These PACE loans were secured by liens on the consumer's property. The investigations established that many of the PACE loans were obtained without the property owner's knowledge or approval. Numerous projects were not completed, and the CSLB investigation was diverted for use other than contracted work. A consumer restitution settlement of $150,000 was obtained with now revoked licensee Max Hernandez. Further, a summary judgment requesting $3 million in restitution is pending against 3 of the unlicensed principals. The LA City Attorney has obtained a temporary restraining order, injunction, and perhaps most importantly, a financial asset freeze in response to the requested restitution order. I thank the CSLB staff and leadership for their efforts in assisting the LA Attorney. On page 99 of your packet, you will find enforcement statistical overview covering the period of January 2020 through January of 2021. As stated previously, CSLB saw a decrease in complaints in 2020. The 16,660 investigations initiated by CSLB were down more than 3,400 from 2019, and the 949 average complaints received per month were down about 17% prior year. The packet notes that complaint negotiation efforts for non-egregious consumer complaints resulted in more than $25 million in restitution to financially injured parties. And of the 1,629 legal action investigations, 30% were referred for criminal prosecution. Case management activities from January 2020 through January 2021 are listed on page 100 of your packet relating to arbitration, citations, civil penalties collected, and accusations. From January 1st, 2020 to January 31st of 2021, SWIFT conducted 16 sting operations, participated in 63 sweep days, and responded to 740 leads. SWIFT closed 3,201 cases because of undercover stings, sweeps, and leads, 784 of which resulted in administrative or criminal legal action, as well as the issuance of 1,431 advisory notices for minor violations. Page 101 of your packet contains more information on SWIFT activities relating to district attorney referrals, administrative actions, stop orders, and outstanding tax and state agency liability suspensions, including a table that summarizes those liabilities that were collected on page 2. The Labor Enforcement Task Force contained on page 102 is the same as previously reported in December 2020 because these inspections were suspended in March 2020 due to COVID. This is an informational item. There is no action required of the board, but if there are any board comments, we would take them now on enforcement. Are there any, Chair Delatorre?
No.
Oh.
No, I was going to ask if there was any board comments. However, I do want to thank you for that update, and I do want to thank the enforcement department for the work that they do in behalf of the consumers of California. So,
Absolutely. Shelley, is there any public comment?
None in the chat, none in the QA, and I do not see any hand raises. I think we're clear.
Fantastic. Going down to page 105 of your pack. This agenda item highlights the continued partnership between Cslb and the California Public Utilities Commission in combating fraud in the residential solar industry. At the February 4th, 2021 Enforcement Committee meeting, we were joined by PUC Commissioner Martha Guzman-Aceves, who is a founding member of the Joint Solar Task Force, along with CSLB Registrar David Fote and the Department of Protection Station Commissioner Manny Alvarez. This task force has met quarterly since November of 2018 to discuss and develop consumer protection strategies. These meetings have proven to be very successful and have resulted in a PUC proposed rulemaking decision that requires investor-owned utilities, also known as IOUs, to perform audits of interconnection packets that include solar contracts to confirm that contractors are licensed, among other things, and to make this available to the CSLB. These three agencies are involved because they each regulate different aspects of the residential solar marketplace. CSLB, of course, regulates the solicitation and installation of the solar system. The Department of Financial Protection and Innovation regulates the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, otherwise known as PACE, which allows homeowners to finance solar system installations with tax assessments on their property. And of course, the PUC is involved because 90% of Californians that participate in net energy metering do so through PUC regulated utilities. At the February 4th committee meeting, Commissioner Guzman-Aceves explained that PUC has been especially concerned about consumers who participate in the net energy metering and who find themselves committed to solar contracts that cost more than expected, and or to systems that do not produce energy as expected, and or that were never interconnected to the electrical grid. A 2020 PUC decision included the following two findings: that IOUs need to implement changes to their interconnection portals to improve the quality and accuracy of information collected on solar providers and their agents, and that there is a need to fund restitution for consumers who have been defrauded when attempting to go solar. Seeking input and support from the board, Commissioner Guzman-Aceves presented proposals to address two concerns. The first proposal is described at the bottom of page 105. This first proposal is for the IOUs to more thoroughly review the documents uploaded by contractors to interconnection portals for consumers participating in net energy metering. Interconnection portals are online databases implemented by IOUs so that certain information about consumers connecting their new solar systems to utility grids. This proposal will also provide CSLB access to the interconnection contracts, which will be made available through a secure portal and will include information such as utility name, CSLB contractor licensee, and home improvement salesperson registration numbers, solar equipment information, PUC solar consumer guide, CSLB solar disclosure notice, solar purchase installation contract, and solar transaction financial disclosure. This is information CSLB would not ordinarily have unless the particular transaction was subject to a CSLB consumer complaint. This information can be provided to CSLB upon request pursuant to the existing memorandums of understanding, ensuring confidentiality with the IOUs. CSLB will review this information received and initiate investigations as resources provide. Staff resources permitting, CSLB Enforcement Manager is prepared to implement the following strategies to achieve consumer protection goals. Reviewing 600 interconnection packets annually to ensure compliance with home improvement salesperson registration requirements and inclusion of the CSLB solar disclosure document, project approximate start and completion dates, and appropriate down payment and progress payment information. For packets that are not in compliance, review the contractor's complaint history and take appropriate action to bring them into compliance or to seek corrective or disciplinary action as appropriate. At its February 4, 2021, the Enforcement Committee unanimously approved a motion that made the following recommendation. And that recommendation is that the full board support PUC's enhanced auditing proposal and solar transaction record proposal. This is a fully formed motion of the Enforcement Committee that is coming before the board. Before we take a vote on it, are there any board comments or questions about the PUC's enhanced auditing proposal from the board? Don't everybody speak at once. Is there any public comment, Shelley, or board comment?
And this is the moderator. And just a reminder, if you'd like to make a public comment, you may utilize the chat feature. You may utilize our Q&A feature by clicking on the Q&A icon on your screen and typing into the text field, or our hand raise feature is also activated. And I am not seeing anything at this time.
Okay, in as much as this comes as a fully formed motion, Felice, please call roll on the question. And I am an aye.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Kevin Lebanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamura,
Aye.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobos,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
Aye.
Don Giordano,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Michael Mark,
Aye.
Jeremy Wayne,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Taggart.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Sorry about that. I was on mute.
Yeah. Okay. So next,
We have one more discussion item, Chair, on page 107, and that's the second proposal from the PUC that was considered at the Enforcement Committee. The second proposal relates to a residential solar recovery fund to assist homeowners, and it would involve the collection of approximate $12 to $20 additional surcharge at the time of interconnection to the electrical grid to establish a restitution fund. If the fund is created, CSLB will implement protocols to refer solar cases to the recovery fund for payout, including when the licensee is subject to a final administrative or legal action. That includes an order of correction and that the solar contractor has not satisfied the financial injury. Even if the license is already revoked or no longer renewable, CSLB will continue to identify all complaints received against that contractor to determine whether a probable violation has occurred and whether the complaint involves allegations that, if proven, would present a risk of harm to the public. The CSLB will share the estimated consumer financial injury with this recovery fund. It's important to note that legislation will be required to compel contractors to reimburse the fund if the financial injury was not established a formal disciplinary action or proceeding. Of course, CSLB's existing practice is to relicense a person unless rehabilitation is shown and by resolving all construction-related financial liabilities. At its February 4, 2021, the Enforcement Committee unanimously approved a motion that made the following recommendation, and that is that the full board support PUC's recovery fund for net energy metering solar consumers proposal with a modified protocol for contractors subject to complaints when other remedies have been exhausted. This is a fully formed motion of the Enforcement Committee that's coming to the full board. Are there any questions or comments from the board on the recommendation? Shelley, are there any public comments on the recommendation?
I am not seeing any requests for comment at this time.
All right. I would like, just in my capacity as motion, I support restitution fund. I think there could be some better opportunities for the board and or PUC, whether it's through a surety bond with these contractors that are connecting, because the connection of the harm to the contractor is not included. But please call the roll.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
David Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamira.
Aye.
Buggy Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobos,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
Aye.
Don Giarratano,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Michael Mark,
Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Taggart.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Chair De La Torre. That concludes enforcement.
Thank you, Kevin. I was a little hesitant to jump in this time, but thank you for that comprehensive and thorough report. Next, leading us through the licensing and testing portion of our meeting is Licensing Committee Chair Jim Ruane. Jim, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. Starting on page 113 is the Licensing and Testing Division overviews and the division's strategic plan. I've asked Justin to briefly provide the board an overview of the division's functions and an update on the plan. Justin?
Good morning, board and participants. I was just going to run through briefly our various units, as Jim said, on page 113. Again, just a high-level overview of our program, as of our other divisions have done. Specifically, we have a part of our division, units that are devoted to processing applications, and you can see a breakdown of the activities that they do, as well as looking at proper bonding, insurance, etc. The next unit that we have within us is to essentially maintain our licensing information. So that would be renewals, changes of address, changes to business names, updating workers' compensation or bond information, anything of that nature. Next, we'll move to actually providing support to our consumers and stakeholders. That actually falls within what we call our License Information Center, or LIC. That's where we handle calls that come in for any inquiries with CSLB. And I'm happy to report, as of this morning, our average wait time is now below 5 minutes at 4 minutes and 44 seconds. This unit also is looking at any sort of civil judgment that would be levied against a licensee and any sort of records request. So, for example, some sort of court proceeding, or if you need a copy of your records for any reason, this unit would also handle that. And last but not least, we also assist government entities. For the most part, you're talking about local building officials with answering any questions on classification determinations, what may be proper for a certain public work before they actually go out for bid, things of that nature. So that gives an overview of our division in a nutshell. And then I'll move now to our testing division. Our testing division can essentially be broken up into two parts. We have a section that administers our exams, and we have a section that writes our exams. We actually are currently administering exams in 7 locations throughout the state, and we are working with the Department of Consumer Affairs to outsource that function. And we're actually pretty far along in that process at the moment. And then on the other side of the store, we're actually developing the exams. And that's actually where we're meeting with subject matter experts. We're doing surveys of the industry, and we're making sure that we periodically update those roughly about every 5 years in accordance with statute, but we're actually a little bit better than that, thanks to our exam development unit. So that's sort of, again, that's the testing division also in just a brief nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. I'll just briefly run through our strategic plan and then hand it back over to Jim. A lot of our strategic items, our strategic plan items have been met. I'll just give you a few updates on some outstanding ones. In item 1.4, we actually have our AB 2138 regulations with the Department of Finance at the moment, but those are moving forward and we are fully implementing AB 2138, which is sort of just an update in our criminal background review as we speak. In item 1.5, Michael Jamnetsky will provide some more detail later, but our bond report was actually already presented to the board, and there will be some legislation this year he'll give you a summary on. Moving forward, we're also on item 1.7, we continue to work with the IT division to update guidance with regard to any sort of inquiries online, as well as classification determinations. And then finally, we're continuing to, item 1.12, we're continuing to review our subject matter expert pool and do surveys. And if anyone's aware of anyone who's interested in being a subject matter expert, you can certainly contact me offline so we can get them examined as well for that. And with that, I will hand it back to Jim. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Justin. Any board member comments? All right. Seeing none. Shelley, do any members of the public have comments?
I am not seeing any requests for comment at this time.
Thank you. I'll go on to item 2 and 3, which is our licensing program update and our testing program update. You can find the licensing update on page 121. I will highlight a few items for the board. Regarding applications, the application unit staffing issues have greatly improved, with only 1 vacancy remaining. For this reason, processing times are starting to come down. Most notably, original exam applications were at 8.8 weeks and are now at 7 weeks. Our goal is to be at 6 weeks in 30 days and 4 weeks in 60 days. Exam waiver applications were at 7.1 weeks and are now at 5.8 weeks. Our goal is to be under 5 weeks in the next month and 3 weeks in 60 days. All other applications are processed within 2 to 3 weeks, which is the board's ongoing goal for all licensing transactions. Regarding our license renewal and modification units, our longstanding manager retired and a new manager started this month. During the transition, there was an increased backlog, but as of this morning, we are processing renewals received in the last 3 weeks, workers' compensation policies and exemptions received in the last 2 weeks, and license modification requests such as address or business name changes received within 4 weeks. Staff continues to utilize staff from other units to assist with processing renewals timely. Moving to page 130 are the call center statistics. As previously reported, call center wait times from April through December were excessively high. Since the call center staff received the necessary equipment to answer calls remotely in November, call wait times began returning to our internal goal of under 6 minutes. In February 2021, the average wait time was 4 minutes and 45 seconds, and in March, it's currently hovering just below 5 minutes. On pages 132 and 133, you will find statistics confirming staff's continued success in assisting the public in collecting outstanding civil judgments and other state agencies in collecting wage, tax, and administrative penalties. Cslb's administrative license suspension program collected more than $48 million in outstanding liabilities in 2020. You can find the testing update on page 137. Testing centers were closed in December and reopened February 1st. During normal operations, staff expect to see a pending exam count of 4,500. When the reopening began, our pending count was over 11,000. In the first few weeks, candidates were hesitant to sit for exams because many wanted additional time to study. About a month after reopening, many of our facilities began to reach capacity and began scheduling evening sessions to reduce the backlog. At present, we have approximately 10,600 pending exams. With the extended testing hours at capacity, we could administer approximately 1,200 exams a week. Our goal is to reduce our pending applications below 7,000 in the next 3 months. Please keep in mind each day we are testing candidates, we are also adding new candidates to our calendar because the application units have accepted new candidates' application materials. At present, most of our facilities can still take walk-ins, so if someone is looking to schedule their exam quickly, please have them send an email to exams@cslb.ca.gov. Finally, the Exam Development Unit has held item writing workshops by using a two-facility approach, one at CSLB Sacramento headquarters and one at the Norwalk office. The two-facility approach reduced the need for lodging and eliminates air travel. After working out a few bugs, it is working well. That concludes the licensing and testing update, and Justin is available if the board has any questions. Anything for Justin? Okay. Please note in the next item, we will discuss a process on developing the B2 residential remodeling exam. And with that in mind, do board members have any comments? All right, Shelley, anyone from the public?
Not seeing any requests for comment at the time.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll move to item 4, which is an update on the test development for the new B2 residential remodeling license classification. Moving to item 4, please turn to page 143. As a reminder, each meeting I will provide the board an update on the new B2 residential remodeling contractor classification exam development. As you know, this fall, the legislature and the governor authorized the creation of this new classification, and staff has been working to develop the necessary trade exam for this new classification. I'm happy to report that even with the December and January closures, staff remained on track to administer the new examination by August 1st, 2021. This is in large part thanks to testing manager Carol Gagnon, who heads the unit. Thank you, Carol. However, not only are staff developing the new trade exam, but they also have to update several IT systems and begin advertising the new classification through various media. A breakdown of the timeline staff has developed is also on page 143. Any board comment on this? All right, seeing none. Shelley, anything from the public? All right.
Nope, not at this time.
All right, thank you, Shelley. Item 5, Advisory Committee Update on Women in Construction. Please turn to page 147. As you know, in the fall of last year, Board Chair David Delatorre appointed Mary Tykert and I to oversee staff outreach efforts to promote women in construction in the construction industry. As you can see on page 149, on behalf of the board, Mary and I recently sent a letter of support for a California Senate resolution that established March 7th, 2021 through March 13th, 2021 as California's Women in Construction Week. This resolution was part of a national effort by the National Association of Women in Construction. Mary and I have also had several meetings with the California Capital Women's Business Center and the North State Building Industry Association to develop a 3-part seminar designed to assist women and minorities obtain a career in the construction industry. The flyer for these events is on the screen. It should be momentarily. There you go. The first session is on April 14th and focuses on getting a contractor's license. The second session on May 12th focuses on starting a business, and the third session on June 2nd focuses on buying a business. Former contractor board member Cindy Mitchell is assisting with this project, and current board member and building official Nancy Springer has volunteered to be a panelist for this effort. Thank you, Nancy. Mary Tykert has been instrumental in getting industry participation for the event. Mary, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
I think I'd just add that there is widespread support for this mission. I think there's a lot of interest in having a larger portion of the workforce be interested in construction and particularly in becoming licensed contractors. So we've gotten some excellent support, as you can see from the flyer on your screen, also from a number of the labor unions who are involved in California. So operating engineers is not on this flyer, but they're going to be a sponsor, as well as the laborers and several others. So it's been a terrific effort from a lot of different stakeholders. And I think we're going to have some interesting outputs from these workshops, which will help inform our efforts going forward too.
All right, thank you, Mary. I know you've been very instrumental, and I really appreciate your efforts on this. We also wanted to take a moment to highlight another effort by Carpenters Local Union 1977 to encourage women participation in our industry. Can staff please put the brief clip on this effort on the screen? It's very short, but it's very interesting.
This platform was built to help apprentices learn how to walk up and down stairs safely, carrying heavy equipment and other materials. A common misconception is that this type of work is for men only. Today we wanted to find out why that is. So we came here to Carpenters Local 1977, and we learned that there are a couple of reasons for it. One big reason, decades of bias. Most of the apprentices at Carpenters Local 1977 are men, but there are some ladies in the ranks.
And I want to do something different, just looking around Vegas with the industry and the way it was building.
My whole family background is construction, and my uncle had offered me a job, and I was like, sure, I'll take it.
But it hasn't been an easy road for women in the construction industry. Jovan Johnson says her first supervisor made sure of it.
It was almost a hazing to where, you know, I'm gonna make her not want to do this. I'm gonna make her hate coming here every day.
Johnson says misconceptions about construction have kept women from entering the field.
Women think that you have to be a big, strong, burly man to do the job, when really a lot of it is paying fine-tuned attention to details.
Johnson says decades of bias is another reason why the construction industry workforce is made up of only 10% women.
There are men that are in the trade now that still feel like a woman should be at home.
To change the narrative, Carpenters Local 1977 is promoting women in construction by posting more videos and pictures of them in the field. It's also reaching out to high school girls through a program called Career Connections, which teaches carpentry.
We want to go even as low as middle school and elementary school just to expose them to that.
It's very interesting, and it's fun. It's fun for us as a woman, as females.
Yes, there are a lot more men, but that doesn't mean that a woman can't do it too.
And coming up at 6 o'clock, how technology and updated regulations in construction are making it easier for women to enter the field. That's coming up at 6. For now, reporting live, I'm Enzo Marino, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
Great. We back on? Okay. This is really exciting, and I'm pleased to see these types of efforts, and I encourage the board and the public to make us aware of any other efforts that we can promote or to help support us. With that, any board member comments? Shelley, any public comments?
None at this time.
That's great.
This is Michael Mark. I do have one comment on this.
Sure, Michael.
Topic. I appreciate all the hard work Nancy and yourself have done for this great effort. I do know it is a culture change that the trades are working diligently to do. And I know the carpenters have done a really great well, especially on that video. One other organization I think that would bring highlight would be Tradeswomen Inc. that really does try to focus to change that culture and provide more opportunities for women in the trades. And obviously on that highlighted event that's coming up, it would be great to have more women-owned licensees. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that's what we're trying to achieve. We're working very hard at that and getting a lot of support. So thank you very much. And once again, Shelley, nothing from the public. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Our next item 6, review, discussion, and possible action to approve construction management education account advisory board membership for July 2021 to June 2024 term. For our final item, please turn to page 153. You may recall that CSLB annually provides grants to construction management programs through voluntary proceeds it collects from our licensees and applicants. As part of the grant process each year, an advisory committee comprised of industry representatives reviews CSLB staff recommendations on how to disperse the grants based on the authority CSLB has to release and which organizations applied for that year. By statute, the committee serves 3-year terms. The committee's term is set to expire this June, and so staff contacted the organizations enumerated in statute authorized to have a participant on the committee. All the organizations responded and proposed the candidates you can see on page 154. The board is now being asked to approve this list. I would like to ask the board to consider the following motion. Appoint the members found on page 154 of our meeting packet to serve as the Construction Management Education Advisory Committee for the July 2021 to June 2024 term. I'd like to ask for a motion, and please state your name followed by the motion and also a second.
Augie Beltran, so moved.
Albanese, second.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Is there any board comment on the question? Seeing none. Shelley, any public comment?
I do not have any public comments on this item specifically, but when we're finished with this, I do have one commenter who's requested to speak at the end of item F.
Okay, fine. Seeing no other public comment, Felice, will you please call the roll?
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Yes.
Frank Altamira.
Aye.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobles,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
Aye.
Don Giordano,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Michael Mark,
Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Taggart.
Aye.
All right,
Motion
thank you. Great, motion passes. Before we conclude, you did have one public comment, Shelley?
We do. Philip Vermillion has requested to make a comment. Philip, your line is unmuted. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. I'm Phil Vermeulen, representing Tokyo Marine HCC, American Contractors Indemnity, which is part of the company, and also SureTech. Combined, these companies write approximately 65% of all the license bonds in California. I wanted to bring the board, make the board aware of a court decision that came down 2 weeks ago. We met over conference with my members and the registrar and Justin Paddock and Mike Janetsky this past Monday to apprise them of the situation. This court decision, which was in the appellate court decision, was Carton versus Ari Design and Construction. And the ruling said that besides the bond payout by the surety company, that they would also have to pay out $90,000 in attorney fees to the plaintiff. This sets up a very concerning precedent for the surety industry, and in particular for all the contractors, because as you all know, a contractor indemnifies the surety company for the costs. With so many small contractors in California, this could have a tremendous impact. Part of it would be obviously that the underwriting would be significantly greater, and there would be a lot of incoming contractors, prospective contractors that could not qualify for bonds. So we are deeply concerned about this. On top of that, as Chief Janetsky will report, the Senate Business and Professions Committee will be introducing a bill within the week that will increase the bond per the license board's study that was released to the legislature back in December, which the bond companies were supporting as well. This now may put that into question as well. I just, as we were speaking, received an email that the surety company, Wesco, has filed a petition for rehearing this coming Monday and has been authorized to petition the Supreme Court as well to unpublish or depublish this ruling. So we will keep everybody posted. This is very concerning to everybody, and it should be. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And staff, please keep us posted on that particular situation. It sounds very concerning. Thank you. And that, Mr. Chairman, concludes my licensing report.
Okay, Jim, thank you. Before we begin with item G, I've just been made aware that Marlo would like to make a couple comments, former board member Marlo Richardson. So if there are no objections, we'll have her kindly step in and see none from the board. Okay. Marlo, are you on?
I do not see that she has joined the meeting yet.
Well, Shelley, is she a participant? This is Dave Fote, because I've been getting text messages from her that she'd like to be moved over as a panelist. But you don't see her as a participant?
Her name, I do not see her name in the attendee list. I do have a call-in user that's connected. I do not know if perhaps.
Can we check on that?
Yeah, let's see. So, an individual identified as a call-in user. I'm unmuting your microphone. Marlo, is this you? Secondary call-in user. I'm unmuting your microphone. Marlo, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, there you are.
Okay, Marlo, the floor is yours.
I just wanted to say goodbye and thank you to everyone, especially all of the staff. You guys have done an outstanding job. To my co-board members, thank you for all your support over the years. I'm going to miss you guys. I apologize for being late, and if you hear kid toys in the background, that's why. But thank you very much.
Yeah, Marlo, I don't know if you knew, but we did present a plaque, and I read it off. Again, if there's no objections, I'll repeat it now that we got you on the meeting. It's presented to Marlo Richardson, Contractor State Licensing Board Member from 2015 to 2020, and Board Chair from 2018 to 2019. In recognition of your outstanding contributions to the Contractor State Licensing Board, the people of California, and to the construction industry, thank you for a job well done. So that was it. David, would you care to have some comments?
Yeah, Marlo. Yeah, thank you and good morning. Marlo, I just really like to thank you for always going the extra mile to help staff. You not only served as a trainer, you participated in trainings, you provided us recommendation for trainers, you attended staff meetings, and I know you made a lot of up and back trips, same day trips out of LAX. So just on behalf of staff, certainly myself, we want to thank you for all that you did as a board member.
Thank you, Dave.
Well, I'll just repeat succinctly, I've really enjoyed serving with you. Got a lot of respect for you and wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
Okay. Marlo, well, you're welcome to stay on. Okay. No more
Thank you
other
so
comments. With that, we'll move on to the public affairs overview and update. I turn it over to Public Affairs Chair Diana Love.
Thank you, Board Chair, and good morning, board members and members of the public. My name is Diana Love. I am the Chair of the Public Affairs Committee. I'm one of the board's public members and also represents a statewide senior citizens organization. First, I want to mention that Chief Deputy Registrar Tanya Cochran is temporarily overseeing the Public Affairs Office. Tanya will be the manager of the positions for Chief and the manager. Recruitment efforts are underway to fill the Public Affairs Manager vacancy. Interviews are scheduled next week. The Public Affairs Chief position is being worked on and anticipated it will be filled in the months to come. Starting on page 159 is the Public Affairs Program Overview. The overview provides a snapshot of the roles and responsibilities of the Public Affairs Office. As you can see, it encompasses media relations, outreach, disaster response, social media, video production, and designing and editing publications. I hope you find this document informative. On page 161 is the Public Affairs Strategic Plan Objectives. Today I want to touch on two items. First, item 4.6, It is to expand website content to keep industry and contractors up to date on relative information. Public Affairs and Information Technology are creating a utility navigation link to allow contractors and the public to quickly access press releases, industry bulletins, and news articles to the website. This new utility will decrease the workload on IT and provide public affairs staff the ability to independently coordinate website postings with social media posts and external media announcements. Second, item 4.9 is a partnership with IT to review and update the web content to ensure information presented to the public in accurate and accessibility. Jason showed the board three changes to the CSLB homepage: Google Translate, new alerts section, and the link to the California grant portal. Google Translate was moved at the request of board member Susan Granzella. I also made a suggestion that we have a separate category for the certification from license classification that was completed, and both were great suggestions. It was a great suggestion and quick for staff to implement. We are always looking for ideas from board members and the public on improvements we can make to our web content. If board members have any suggestions, please feel free to share them with Tanya. That completes the strategic plan update. Tanya is available should you have any questions. Do any board members have any comments? Shelley, do any members of the public have any comments related to public affairs?
I am not seeing any requests at this time.
Okay, thank you. The public affairs program update, I'll give it this time. You can find the public affairs update beginning on page 167. I will cover a few highlights. First, on pages 167 and 168, activities were captured from January 2020 through January 2021. Many items that were previously in written or bulleted format were placed into charts for easier readability and reference. You will see these new charts being utilized in future board and committee packet materials. CSLB continues to participate on 2 multi-agency task forces established by Office of Emergency Services. One focuses on debris removal and one focuses on housing. On February 25th, Public Affairs staff presented information at the Housing Task Force, which included members from affected counties. The presentation included information for disaster survivors, as well as an invitation to partner with CSLB on disaster rebuilding workshops. Now turning to page 169, you will see Public Affairs created 16 videos. Today, at the close of this update, we will see one of our videos, the Great License to Build Workshop video. Pages 170 through 175 shows our social media highlights. We continue to post daily on a variety of topics, from getting licensed to build, using a licensed contractor, reporting unlicensed activity to general messages from the administration, such as COVID-related public information. You can find the chart on our industry bulletins on page 177 and 178. A total of 27 industry bulletins were issued. Also on page 178 is a list of publications that have been updated. 5 of the publications that have been updated are English and Spanish. Moving to our Senior Scam Stopper seminars on page 183, there are a total of 24 Senior Scam Stoppers held and or scheduled. As you can see, we transitioned from in-person to virtual in May 2020. Both formats have been very successful. On page 184 through 185 is a listing of our intranet stories. A total of 42 stories have been posted. Staff continues to update our employee intranet site with stories, photos, and informational updates. With most staff working remotely, the intranet is a great source for staff to stay connected. Lastly, I would like to discuss the updated Get Licensed to Bill publication that was provided with your board packet. This 51-page comprehensive publication covers the 7 steps to becoming a licensed contractor, provides classification information, and provides answers to frequently asked questions throughout. The Spanish version is expected to be available early May. In addition, this is a source document for our Get Licensed to Build workshops. Staff recently created a public service announcement to advertise the monthly workshops that we will now play for you. Kevin, please play the video.
Do you want to learn how to get your contractor's license? Check out our Get Licensed to Build workshop. It's a free online training course that takes you through the process of getting your contractor's license through CSLB. Some of the topics we cover are who needs a license, what you'll need to get a license, the application process, demonstrating work experience, and the exam process. This workshop takes place every first Friday of the month from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. You can join us on WebEx, which includes a question and answer session after the presentation, or you can watch live on YouTube or Facebook, where you'll also find recordings of past workshops if you missed the live event. To register for an upcoming workshop, just go to cslb.ca.gov. You can register up to a week before the event by using the banner at the top of the homepage. We look forward to seeing you at our next workshop. For more information about getting a license, go to cslb.ca.gov/getlicensed.
As you can see, public affairs staff have been very busy. Tanya is available if the board has any questions. Are there any board questions or comments? Shelley, does anyone from the public have any comments?
Just as a reminder, if you'd like to make a public comment, you may utilize our chat feature, locate the Q&A icon on your screen, and activate the question and answer feature, or we also have the raised hand feature activated, and I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay, thank you. Board Chair, that concludes the public affairs update.
Diana, thank you for that overview. The last items on today's agenda are specific to legislation. I now turn it over to Legislation Chair Augie Beltran. Augie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just trying to get my mouse over the mute. Okay. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. This begins our legislative overview. The first item is a legislative overview, which begins on page 191 of your packets. We prepared an overview that we thought might be helpful for our newest board members. The CSLB Chief of Legislation, Mike Jamnetsky, or Chief J, works with 2 manager specialists, one who handles CSLB regulations and one who handles CSLB budgets, Stacy Paul, who you heard from earlier today. Stacy also works very closely with the Registrar and Chief Deputy Registrar, as budgets are a very important administrative function. Chief, why don't you give us a brief overview on the legislative division?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I like to think of the legislative division as having a proactive and a reactive function, much like enforcement. With enforcement, they have reactive complaints where consumers file complaints with the board against contractors, and the reactive boots on the ground approach for active job sites. Well, legislation is similar. We draft list proposals in a proactive sense as recommended by the board, and we obtain authors, go out and get support and get the bill through the legislature. And then our reactive function is to watch every single bill that comes out. There's been 2,500 so far this session. We work with stakeholders who have questions on those bills. If industry has questions, we help with technical amendments where needed. And then the ones that are significant to affect CSLB, they come to the board agenda for discussion. And there are plenty of those today. That is the legislative side of things. We also have the regulatory side of things. I know many of the members are aware of the regulatory process. The way I like to think about it is it's basically agency-made law. So where we have statutes and state codes that are enacted by the legislature with the approval of the executive branch and the governor's office, the regulations are actually made to make those statutes more clear or implement those statutes, and they are just on the executive branch side. So as a result, they go through many stages to make sure all the protections that are involved with legislative bills are in the agency-made rules. And so we have public hearings for opportunities to contribute, and it goes through many reviews by other agencies, so they take a little bit longer. But that is our brief breakdown of the legislative and regulatory division.
And I'm sure if any of the new board members would like more information, Chief Jay would make himself available. But I will ask, are there any questions of the public on the chief's overview or from the board? Shelley?
I am not seeing any at this time.
Very good. So now we're going to review, discuss, and possible action to amend legislative 2019 through 21 strategic plan. Please find yourselves on page 193 of your packets, and the chief will update us on the legislative division strategic plan. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, page 193, a number of these are complete, and we do have a number of ideas for developing some of the others that are going to be vetted at the next legislative committee meeting. But for now, for the board update, I'd like to mention two of these. The first is item 3.4 on the bottom of page 193. So as you heard during the licensing division update from one of our stakeholders, Mr. Vermillion, the CSLB did issue its bond study in response to a request from the legislature to do so. That bond study did recommend, or it did conclude that the $15,000 license bond may not be sufficient and that an increase might be necessary, but it otherwise didn't make any recommendation for legislation or anything like that. It just updated, it answered the legislature's question. Well, this strategic plan item does ask staff to review the bonding requirements of qualifiers vis-a-vis the license bond. It's part of the qualifier bond is part of the bond requirement for CSLB. So the study did include the qualifier bond, and the recommendation would be if the legislature does increase the license bond, it also touch on the qualifier bond. As Mr. Vermillion mentioned, there will be a committee bill, and we've gotten indication that the committee bill will include the bond language, an increase of the bond up to about $25,000, which is the amount that underwriting, the highest it could be raised without underwriting being required. Now that committee bill has been introduced, however, it does not include the bond language. So we are still working with the Senate committee consultant to figure out if and when that will occur. But that is the latest on 3.4. Item 3.8, as the board is certainly well aware, the board has been in a structural fee imbalance, structural budget imbalance, and we did retain a fee consultant to study our fees. This item does relate to the possibility of a graduated fee increase for larger contractors. Well, indeed, the fee study does include that recommendation. So this is an opportunity for me to update the board on our efforts to get the fee language into statute, the fee language that was recommended by the fee consultant to raise our fees. So as I believe probably the registrar has updated all of the members earlier this year, the CSLB staff was not successful in locating a standalone author to carry our fee increase language. We reached out to over 24 authors' offices, and it wasn't overly surprising with the, with the climate right now with pandemic and struggling businesses and all the rest, it was not surprising that we did not get a standalone author. It also does not mean the end of the world. There are still many options for getting that language into a bill. We have secured a commitment from Assembly B&P to Business and Professions Committee to help the board ensure that they get their increase this year. And also the DCA remains very optimistic that this will get done. It's a matter of dealing with all the moving parts with the legislature, the other boards who need fee increases, and those who are in sunset and those who are not, and finding one vehicle so the members of the legislature don't have to vote 1,000 times on different fee bills. So that is the update on the fee bill. The word is optimism and also still mission critical. That is my update on the strategic plan.
Thank you, Chief. This is a status update only. No further action is required by the board, but are there any board comments?
Yes, this is board member Susan Granzella, and I have a question since we had worked on this earlier. I know it's very difficult to give a date or an estimate of a time that this will be accepted, but originally the study had delivered their conclusion that the fees would be increased in July of 2021. Now, I know that is flexible and within working of this new, your new plan to get this get it approved. So September?
So yes, it's an excellent question. If we can get into a committee bill or a budget trailer bill this year, the goal would be that that language would get worked out and potentially be effective in the new year. So that would apply to, the language you get into statute would be effective January 1st and apply to the March 2022 renewal cycle. Now, if for some reason we are not successful in getting a vehicle this year, which again, the word is optimism. I unfortunately wish I could provide promises. That would be a vehicle, when I say vehicle, a measure, a legislative bill next year for that fee increase language. And then we'd be looking at March of 2023 renewal cycle. And there will be some time needed for staff to integrate the fee changes into our IT systems.
And just one more question. We spoke earlier about this where they were going to bundle, for lack of a better word, the fee increases proposed by other DCA agencies. Are we going to be alone or bundled? In what way will this be different?
I suspect, so by bundled, you mean with other agencies in one bill?
Such as the medical board, when we talked about that.
I suspect that will the result will be that we will find ourselves in a bill with other boards. But what I will say is it likely won't be with sunset boards. And right now, medical board is in sunset. So as I sit here now, I do not anticipate that CSLB would wind up in the medical board sunset bill. There are other boards who are not going through sunset who are also in need of a fee increase, and who I understand their licentiates or their stakeholders are not extremely concerned about an increase. I don't want to speak for anybody, but they're less controversial, if you will. And it is our plan to wind up in a measure with the boards that are not going through any major legislative change like sunset this year.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands from the board. Shelley, anyone from the public?
I am not seeing any requests for comment from the public at this time.
One last comment on this. I was on CT's Transportation Commission's meeting yesterday, and with the money coming back from the federal government, there's going to be about a $23 billion overage of surplus to the state, and they're going to make a play for $2 billion for ATP. Maybe we as a board, David, should start looking to see if we can make a play for some of that money as well for enforcement. So that's my comment on that. Now we're going to, number 2, update on previously approved legislative proposals. We're now on page 197 of your packets. Let's start with A, SB 216 Dodd. Contractors, workers' comp insurance, mandatory coverage. This is a CSLB sponsored bill that will require C8 concrete C20 HVAC, and D49 tree service contractors have a certificate of workers' compensation insurance on file with CSLB in the first year, and for all contractors by 2025. On February 4th, 2021, the CSLB Legislative Committee voted to recommend a position of support to the full board because the bill was set to be heard in the legislature prior to today's board meeting on February 10th, 2021. As the chair of the Ledge Committee and with board chair approval, I authorize staff to submit a letter of support on this measure to the legislature. Chief, do you have any updates?
Yes, thank you first on behalf of staff to you, Ledge Chair, and to the board chair for the help with the letter. This is a CSLB sponsored bill, and on March 11th, it did go unanimously through the Business and Professions Committee, which is great. On Monday, it was placed on suspense and appropriations, which is to be expected. Any measure that could have a net increase or decrease of $150,000 on anybody anywhere, I believe that's the amount, winds up on suspense, and then they get determined later which bills will go out, and we are optimistic that this one will move forward. That is the update on SB 216.
Thank you. Any board members wish to comment? I don't see any hands. If you wish to comment, go ahead and say something.
You know, I got a comment, Augie. I really appreciate staff and everybody's efforts to put 216 through. I think this is going to be really helpful to the consumer. And when you talk about costs, remember, Mike, or Chief Jay, this is not any new cost. This is what they should be spending anyway because they're cheating. So it is a net zero cost. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Shelley, anyone from the public?
I am not seeing any requests for comment at this time. I just want to remind our public one more time that if you'd like to make a comment, you can utilize our chat feature. You can utilize the Q&A feature by accessing the Q&A panel through the question mark icon on your screen, or we are also have the hand raise feature activated.
Thank you, Shelley.
And no comments at this time.
Thank you again. Now we're on B, AB 246 Quirk, Contractors Disciplinary Actions. Now please turn to page 199. This CSLB sponsored bill would make a licensed contractor's unlawful dumping of construction debris a cause of disciplinary action against a contractor. On February 4th, 2021, the CSLB Ledge Committee voted to recommend a position of support to the full board. Because we learned after the committee meeting that the bill was set to be heard in the legislature prior to today's board meeting, as the chair of the Ledge Committee and with board chair approval, I authorized staff to submit a letter of support for this measure to the legislature on February 23rd, 2021. Chief, do you have any updates?
Just a thank you again to the Ledge Chair and the board chair for the help with the letter. As the board is aware, many of these legislative items are time sensitive and they come up with CSLB's need for involvement before everybody can weigh in. So just thank you again. This is a CSLB sponsored bill. On the 23rd of March, it did move unanimously through the Business and Professions Committee, and it is on its way to appropriations. That is it.
Thank you. Board comments. I don't see any hands up. If you would like to comment from the board, go ahead. Shelley, do we have anyone from the public?
Not seeing any requests at this time.
And I'd like to echo what the chief said. Legislation can move either very, very fast or very, very slow. And having the chair's help and the board's help to let us put these letters out in a timely manner allows us to have some influence on this legislation. So thank you everyone for your help. We're on C now, AB 569 Grayson, Contractors Civil Penalties, Letters of Admonishment. Now we're on page 200. This is CSLB sponsored bill increases the maximum civil penalty CSLB can assess against a contractor for most violations to $8,000 and to $30,000 for specified violations that include licensees contracting with an unlicensed contractor. It also authorizes CSLB to issue a letter of admonishment for more than one violation at a time. On February 4th, 2021, the CSLB Ledge Committee voted to recommend a position of support to the full board. As I've stated for other bills, the bill was set to be heard in the Ledge prior to today's board meeting. Therefore, on February 23rd, 2021, as the chair of the Ledge Committee and with board chair approval, I authorize staff to submit a letter of support of this measure to the legislature. Chief, where are we at on this one?
Yes, again, thank you for the letter. And for anybody who's not aware, there is a provision in the board's procedure manual that does basically what the chair stated, which says if there's a measure that affects, CSLB operations or consumer protection that is out in the legislature that CSLB should weigh in on, that the board hasn't had an opportunity to, the procedure manual does grant the chair the authority to allow us to issue a letter in such circumstances. Again, if it's not been made clear, staff is really grateful for that opportunity. On AB 569, the update is exactly the same as AB 246. It unanimously got through B&P on the 23rd and is on its way to appropriations. And thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I don't see any hands up for the board. If you'd like to say something, please chime in. Shelley, do we have anyone from the public?
Scanning all of our avenues, and I don't see anything at this time.
Thank you. So now, number 3, review, discussion, and possible action on 2021-22 pending legislation. Now, we're on page 201 of your packet. Even though there are several bills on today's agenda, staff is only recommending a vote on 2 of them, AB 484, Alarm Company Operators Advertising Requirement, and AB 1124, Solar Energy Systems. And I'll provide an informational update on one of them, AB 646, Criminal Conviction Expungement. For the remainder of the bills, the chief will provide any updates. Then we will open the floor for questions. Keep in mind, this is our opportunity as a board to make motions to change our support or opposition or amending on any of the bills that are in front of us today. So if you would like to make any motions, you're welcome to do so. Let's start with bills related to CSLB $500 minor work exemption. We're on page 203 and 204. These are 2 bills that relate to the CSLB's $500 work exemption. The staff recommendation on both measures is to remain neutral. They're here for the board's information and any discussion, and if needed, a motion from the board to either support or oppose or amend. Chief, what do you got?
Sure. So there's some background here. So I will be talking a little bit, but I will try to be brief and effective. So we've got 2 bills here, AB 899 and SB 304. 899 hasn't moved. It's been referred to committee, and I've not been able to obtain much information on it. And SB 304 we're going to get to, but basically, as the chair stated, these bills relate to the minor work exemption in the contractors law. It probably sounds familiar to some members because CSLB did have a proposal that would do something similar prior to the pandemic. We will get to that. For background for now, the law does state that the contractors law doesn't apply to construction works or projects for which all labor and materials is less than $500. Now, this exemption doesn't apply if you advertise for construction, unless you say in your advertisement that that you're not licensed and your advertisement is for work under $500. So the $500 exemption is pretty straightforward. It's for work that's considered minor and inconsequential in the statute. So the theory would be that if the normal consumer protection concerns acquainted with hiring a contractor are not as significant if the work is under $500. So that's the lay of the land. With that background, these 2 bills they each do something slightly different. AB 899, which we don't have much info about, would allow CSLB to raise that amount. And again, I should state that CSLB is not involved in these proposals. The board is probably aware of that since they haven't seen these proposals, but that's just at the outset, I will say that. 899, again, I'm not sure where it comes from, but it would allow CSLB to increase that exemption threshold on its own by regulation using an appropriate economic price measure, whether it's the cost of living or the consumer price index. That's what that bill does. Again, it hasn't been heard in committee. The significant bill to discuss today is SB 304. That bill would change that minor work exemption from $500 to $1,000. This is the one we really wanted to update you all on some developments as it was heard on Monday. So CSLB was not involved in the discussion, obviously, on Monday in Senate Business and Professions. We were a fly on the wall. It's not, it's not the board's bill. It is sponsored by the California Association of Realtors. And the bill was discussed for about an hour in the committee. Now, there were concerns raised by members of the legislature during that hour. Again, these CSLB staff was just listening. These are me summarizing the members' concerns. One member asked if the author had given any thought to defining minor and inconsequential, those words in the statute, because it is not defined in the statute. And the thought that the member had was, you might have some projects that are up to $1,000 that are very well minor and inconsequential from a consumer protection standpoint. But there's probably also plenty of other projects that are around $1,000 that are quite consequential and involve technical training and experience for which a license is necessary and could put consumers at risk. And everyone knows if the Contractors Board doesn't have jurisdiction because it's under a certain amount, there's very little opportunity for the board to help a consumer who has a problem with a contractor. Another member of the legislature mentioned numbers from CSLB's bond study, which we mentioned a little while ago. That study, to study the bond, we did research our consumer complaints. And that member did point out that, while the majority of CSLB consumer file complaints do involve contracts that are in the thousands of dollars, around 26% of our complaints, more than a quarter, are still the cost value of the consumer's contract is between $500 and $5,000. So there is still consumer protection concerns at the lower levels. Again, that was something a member brought up. Finally, CSLB was mentioned during the hearing, mostly by the sponsors. And because we don't have a position on the bill, we didn't really have an opportunity to weigh in on the comments, but it was stated that CSLB did support a proposal to increase the threshold in 2019 before the pandemic. And while that is true, and many of the members probably recall that, it did not project the whole story. That measure that we sought an author for to increase the threshold from 500 to 1,000 was really done as a backup. If the board may recall, we were a backup to the remodeling license bill. As the board likely recalls, we had a B2 residential remodeling contractor's license, which we were very fortunate to have be successfully passed through the legislature. But the idea kind of was look, we have this marketplace of contractors who are doing work in homes, and many of them can't apply for a B license because they don't have the framing requirement or the experience, but they're out there doing this work and they need a license, but we don't have a license for them. So we need to either increase the threshold, which is potentially not ideal, or get this license through the legislature, the B2, to provide a pathway for licensure for some of these contractors. Again, we were successful with the B2. The $500 increase was not successful. We also ran into issues with that proposal in talking with some of the construction trades. Some of the concerns that I mentioned a few minutes ago were raised at the time CSLB was working on its increase to the minor work exemption. So at the time, again, prior to the pandemic, we were working on language that would actually protect employees in this $500 work exemption. There was draft language to say that, you don't get the protection of the minor work exemption if you bring an employee to a job site. And for the board's information, we tried to put that same protection in SB 304. We understand the sponsors have accepted it, but it is not in print. That is a long intro to this. I just wanted to be clear that there was opposition at the committee on this bill. The opposition was primarily from trades and unions representing trades, and their concerns echoed many that the members mentioned, which I mentioned a few minutes ago. The bill did get through So it is on its way to appropriations, but a number of members did not vote. So that is my extremely elongated background, and that's where I leave it.
Thank you, Chief. I was on Business and Professions Committee on a different bill, and I was able to overhear some of the testimony in this. Let's keep in mind that we are a group that is dedicated to consumer advocacy. And one of the troubling things that I heard was from a senator asking the author if someone were to hire a person under this bill and they had some issues, how would the person resolve the issues? And the author's reply was small claims court. Now, as a board, we're charged with consumer advocacy. And my own feeling on this is that we're not gonna have the ability to protect the consumer if this bill were to get through. So there's my 2 cents on it. I'll go ahead and take board comment. And I currently see Michael Mark. What do you have, Mike?
Was not muted. I was muted there. Thank you, Chief Jay and Board Chair, for that comments. I appreciate that insight. I was not part of the board earlier on when there was that exemption raised to 1,000 over the approval, but from a consumer base, I'm very, very concerned that if the fee is increased to $1,000 of unexempted, that it will not be good for the consumers, that there is that underground economy, and as individuals and I guess these unlicensed people do work on consumer homes, it will increase the amount of basic consumer complaints that they will have no one to go to. So I do know there's a staff recommendation of neutral or watch. I would actually, I'm not sure if this is a time for a motion, but I would actually motion that we oppose AB 899 and also SB 304.
I'll go ahead and take a second if there's a second out there.
This is Johnny. I'll second that.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. Let's go ahead. Kevin, did you have a comment on this?
Yeah, I do. I appreciate the analysis and the importance of the B2 license and how it might interact with this. We are a consumer protection board. We did agree in 19 to increase it to 1,000. What we're talking about is that threshold from 500 to 1,000. The $500 exemption has been part of the contractor's license law. I know since '98, and I'm sure that there was some minor work exemption from before. I think our focus is on bigger stuff. I would support, or I would not oppose either of these, and I think it's an appropriate adjustment.
Okay. Anyone else? Frank Altamura.
I maybe agree or not, but I would still support raising the minor work exemption from $500 to some higher amount.
Okay. Anyone else on the board? I don't see any hands. If you want to chime in, turn on your camera so I can see you. Okay, I have a hand up from Richard Murkison.
Yes, Richard Markison is requesting to make a comment. Richard, I have your line unmuted. You will have 3 minutes.
Real quick, if somebody's not talking, I'm getting a bad echo. Perhaps everybody can mute while he speaks.
Go ahead, Richard.
Richard, can you hear us? We can't hear you. If you click on the little arrow icon on your unmute button, I'm assuming you're on a computer in saying this, double check your audio connection for your microphone, maybe switch it and try another option. Sometimes that resolves the issue.
Shelley, does Richard want to call into my office and I can put it on speakerphone?
We could try that, sure.
So
You want to provide him your number in the chat?
yes, if everybody's okay with that, I will do that now. I am posting all attendees. Richard, if you can hear us, my office line is now in the chat, and I think I can just put you on speakerphone.
And while we wait for that, we do have another comment request from Gabriel Hernandez.
Go ahead, Gabriel.
Gabriel, I'm unmuting your line. You will have 3 minutes. Gabriel, can you hear us? We cannot hear you.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yep, go ahead, Gabriel.
Yes.
Perfect. There you go. Okay, I was having a problem with my microphone. Okay, I was just thinking, it's just my 2 cents on this proposal for ABA 99. I was thinking that I cannot seriously. I actually work in the industry. We do the jobs, and we started, on the industry doing really small jobs because we couldn't get the license. We didn't have the experience. We needed to get the experience, and I seriously cannot think of any jobs that will cost $1,000 that will basically be consequential for the consumer. 1,000 jobs is basically doing one day's job, doing very basic jobs. So increasing that from 500 to 1,000 will open the door for the opportunity for more people to get experience, to get actual experience, not on doing the job, because that you need to go work for a bigger company, but to learn how to do contracts, to learn how to do the estimates and negotiating with the client. I think at the end, it really helps the people that want to get to work on this industry.
Okay, thank you, Gabriel. Richard, are you on Chief's phone?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And
Go ahead, Richard.
Members of the board, Richard Markison for the Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors of California. We certainly appreciate the board's desire to be actively involved in consumer protection, but from PHCC's perspective, this is really a choice for the consumer. They could continue to use licensed contractors depending on the scope of the project and the availability of a contractor who's willing and able to do projects in that range of $500 to $1,000. As some of you probably know, in the contracting environment right now, it can be extremely delayed finding a contractor who is willing and able to do these small jobs. But from our perspective, it's still something that's always in the realm or the hands of the consumer, whether they want to use a licensed contractor with the protections that would come from that, or a handy person who would be able to conceivably accomplish the minor repairs. Certainly in the event that the bill did proceed, one of the things that would certainly be within the realm for the board to consider is a consumer reminder that in the event that a consumer were to hire a handy person to do these types of minor repairs and modifications, that they are not subject to the purview of the CSLB, and that a consumer would have to pursue any claims against the handy person using a small claims court or some other adjudication for that. Thanks very much for the opportunity to chat. Thanks, Mike, for making your phone available. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard. Shelley, do we have anyone else from the public?
I do not see any other requests. If I could just remind Mr. Markison to lower his hand. I do not see any other requests at this time.
Okay, we're going to call the question. Please, could you, we have a motion to oppose in a second. Could you call roll, please?
David Delatory,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Oppose.
Frank Altamira,
No.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobos,
Yes, could I get clarification on the motion is to oppose the raising to 1,000, correct?
Yes.
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
Oppose.
Don Giortano,
Felice,
Aye.
hold on. Instead of saying oppose, say aye or nay. Go ahead,
Nay.
Felice. Go ahead and go back a couple.
okay. You want to just start over?
Yeah, because oppose can be easily construed as an aye. So let's just yes or no or aye or nay, please.
Yeah, so, thank you, everybody. Yeah, so my understanding is the motion would be to oppose both SB 899 and SB 304. That would be for the board to send a support letter, or I'm sorry, an opposed letter, and testify at any committees on this bill as to the board's position. Thank you, Felice. Go ahead.
Okay. David Delatory,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Nay.
Frank Altamira,
No.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobos,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
No.
Don Giortano,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Michael Mark,
Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
No.
Johnny Simpson, Johnny is absent. Nancy Springer,
Aye.
Mary Tykert.
No.
What do we have, Felice?
Just a moment. You have 8 yeas and 1, 2, 3, 5 nays, so the motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. Bills related to reducing barriers to licensure. We're now on page 205 through 207 of your packet. There are 3 bills here that relate generally to removing barriers to licensure. As it relates to veterans, military partners and spouses, and those with criminal convictions, the bills are AB 646, AB 1026, and AB 1386. I have an update and I'll provide in a moment on AB 646 as it relates to AB 1026 and AB 1386. The staff recommendation on these measures is to simply stay neutral, i.e. not take a position on the bills at this time. They are here for the board's information and any discussion if needed. A motion is not required unless a board member would like to make one. So once again, if you want to change a position on these bills, this will be the time to make a motion. Chief, can you give us an update on 1026 and 1386?
Yes. Again, just as related to these two, these bills are similar. They both relate to easing barriers to licensure, which is a familiar topic to this board. These two relate to veterans of the armed forces and their families, and they would reduce or waive licensure application fees in the appropriate circumstances. These bills are really just here for 2 reasons. One, from a policy standpoint, it's just for the board to be aware that in addition to these bills, there are a couple others in our analysis for these bills that relate to this topic. And that's it. It's just to alert the board as to the direction of the legislature appears to be going on this particular issue. And bigger than that, the other reason is just because there's a fiscal impact. That's why it's here. And the board, as you know, has fiscal thoughts right now. But the fiscal impact is minimal, extremely minimal. So that is all that I have on these measures, and I take it back to the chair.
Well, just go ahead and go on to 646 too, as long as you're at it.
Sure. Let's move on to 646. This one, the chair does have an update as to the board's position on this, but this is also a barriers to licensure bill. And this one is actually the inverse of the last two in that it allows CSLB to collect a fee to remove convictions that have resulted in an expungement from its website. This directly lines up with a licensing division strategic plan item, which is to explore ways to remove barriers to licensure for those who are have been convicted of a crime. Now, this at the board may be aware, the new members probably are not as much. During our sunset, we did publish to everybody that CSLB denies less than 1% of anybody who has a criminal conviction is actually denied because of that conviction. Most of the convictions we see are not what we would say substantially related to the profession and should not serve as a barrier to licensure. And then there are some really serious ones that wouldn't even qualify for expungement that might, result in a board action on, allowing that person to get a license. But it seemed fair, at least in line with the licensing division strategic plan item, that if somebody actually gets an expungement, meaning their action was dismissed and they are deemed rehabilitated, it seemed fair that if that expungement exists, CSLB would just take that and remove it from the website. But Augie, do you, Mr. Chair, do you have an update on AB 646?
Before I jump onto that, let's make sure that no one has any. Does anyone have questions on AB 1026 or AB 1386? I don't see anyone from the board. And Shelley, you see anyone from the public on this one?
I do not see any requests for comment on this.
Okay, so go ahead and turn it to page 205. The bill authorizes CSLB to collect a $50 fee to either update or remove from its website information about a license that was revoked due to a criminal conviction. If the board receives an expungement order related to the conviction, the measure is in line with the CSLB's licensing strategic plan item to identify ways to remove barriers to licensure, as Chief had said. And the measure is co-authored by the chairs of the Assembly and the Senate and Business Professions Committee and has a bipartisan support in the legislature. Staff recommendation is to support the bill. However, staff learned that this week that the board meeting learned before this board meeting that the bill was up for hearing this past Tuesday. And as a result, staff requested a letter on March 18th and I used the authority provided in the board procedure manual to authorize staff to send a support letter for the bill. With chair approval, of course, the letter was sent on March 19th. And Chief, you pretty much said your piece. Are there any questions from the board? Anything from the public? Shelley? Oh, I got something from Frank Altamura. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I thought it was odd that we would charge a fee just to maintain our records, I think was my only comment. And I didn't know if that was consistent with other record-keeping activities for the board.
What do you got to say about that, Chief?
Well, if Mr. Altamura doesn't have an issue, I can mention that to the Assembly Business and Professions Committee staff who are staffing this bill, that, hey, one of our board members did mention that it seems like if this is a record keeping matter, what are your thoughts on the fee? Mr. Altamura, do you have thoughts about me doing that?
Well, hold on. Some of us may have thoughts about you doing that.
I don't speak for the whole board, so. Me personally, I just felt like charging for this was odd.
I believe you would need a motion if you wanted to do that.
That's correct.
Apologies.
Okay, so let's, so is there any public comment on this first? Doesn't look like it. Okay,
I'm not
Frank,
seeing any.
Frank, is this something that you would feel that you would want to make a motion for, even though the board is broke? Pretty much take it where we can get it, I think.
I'm just kind of opening up for discussion if anyone has any other comments.
I might have insight onto why it's there. I believe it's a way to make the prospect more palatable for agencies to do this. I believe that's why it's there, as opposed to just doing it because they were asked to.
Anybody else want to comment on this?
Yeah, Board, Augie, this is David. Part of this legislation is to remove barriers to licensure, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's not depending how egregious the crime is, and obviously if it's been expunged, I have no problem with it, so.
Okay. Anybody else? Any motions?
Augie, if I can comment, it's Tanya real quick.
Go ahead, Tanya.
I just wanted to explain that anything that requires staff work, we typically charge a fee for. So all of our license process applications and whatnot. So it is typical that fees are charged for additional services that we provide. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Anyone else? I don't see any hands. Doesn't look like the public's got any comments anymore, Shelley?
Nope, none so far.
All righty. Well, in that case, let's go to C, bills related to other construction-related issues. Now we're on page 208 through 213. There are 6 bills on this section of the agenda, 2 of which staff is recommending a particular position. These bills relate to a number of different issues that might affect CSLB. The first bill on which staff makes a recommendation is AB 484 Medina, Alarm Company Operators Advertisements. On page 208, this bill would permit a licensed alarm company regulated by CSLB to exclude their license number from radio and television ads if information is included in their online website. Chief, what type of info do you have about this bill?
Sure. So the first big comment here is just for everybody to please note the typo on page 208, a pretty bad one. The Contractor State License Board is not the sponsor of this bill. That was a template from a prior Microsoft Word document. The sponsor is the California Cable and Telecommunications Association. So please forgive us for that typo. So AB 484, this bill is here to just alert the board to possible confusion with the bill as written. First, some quick background. The Contractors Board, of course, does not license alarm company operators. That is the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services. So that jurisdiction, the alarm company operators, that relates directly to the assembly of the equipment that signals an urgent, and this is right from the statute, assembly of equipment that signals an urgent hazard to which police may respond. An alarm company operator is somebody who sells those systems and installs those. As you know, CSLB jurisdiction relates to contractors who materially alter structures or land with their construction operations. And there is an exemption in the contractor's law that says a contractor's license is not required for anyone who does what an alarm company operator does, which is assemble the equipment in a way that it can alert somebody to a hazard. The problem with this bill is that they mention the contractor state license law right in the language. They say notwithstanding 7030.5, which is CSLB's advertising section. The issue with this is twofold. Number one, there are a number of licensed contractors who perform the construction side of these alarm systems. So CSLB has jurisdiction over the construction aspect of installing these. The reference to CSLB is ineffective because the Alarm Company Act does not govern contractors. And right now, a licensed contractor has to put their their license number in all of their advertisements. So with this reference to the contractor's law, it's confusing because it doesn't seem to have the effect it's intended. The BSIS statutes can't tell contractors whether or not to put their advertising license numbers in their ads when they do construction. So it's confusing, but also our advertising requirements are different. Even though this would affect a few license classes who install alarm systems, there's 3 or 4 that might also be regulated by BSIS. There are a lot of, every other contractor has to put their license number in advertisements as the law stands. So our discussions with the author's office, who has been very, very receptive, they seem to understand the issue. The thought right now would be, as we've communicated to them, that the mention of section 7030.5 in their law, which is CSLB's law, should probably be struck to stop with the confusion or to prevent the confusion. And until that's done, our thought was to watch this and potentially oppose later if it's not done. So that is where it stands right now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? I don't see any hands. Shelley, do we have anything from the public?
I am not seeing any requests from the public at this time.
Thank you. So Chair would accept the motion to watch with a concurrent grant of authority for staff to later communicate an opposed position if the bill is not amended.
So moved.
Was that David
Second.
Delatorre?
Yes.
Second, Jim.
Jim? Okay. On the question, anybody from the board have a question? Anybody from the public, Shelley?
Not at this time.
All right, Feliz, hit it.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamira,
Aye.
Mikey Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobolds,
Aye.
Bill Galarza,
Aye.
Don Giarratano,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Michael Mark,
Yes.
Jeremy Wayne,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson is absent. Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Tiker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Feliz. Chief, you still around? Chief Jay?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. We're now on AB 1124 Friedman, Solar Energy Systems. The next measure on which the staff recommends taking action is AB 1124 on page 209. The bill redefines a solar energy system from a structural design feature of a building to a design feature of many structures for the purpose of solar permit fees. What do you got on this bill, Chief?
Yes, so according to the sponsors, which as indicated on page 209, it's the California Solar and Storage Association. This bill is intended just to deal with a double permit fee issue, a building permit fee issue with regards to installing solar. Apparently in various jurisdictions, when it comes to installing solar, there's a way that there could be a double charge for a permit fee, which is not intended by other legislation, which meant to cap permit fees. And this is occurring, according to the sponsors, because of how the word solar energy system is defined in the Solar Rights Act, which is in the Civil Code. It is not the Contractor state license law. So I want to make that clear. This bill has now, where it's located in the state codes, it doesn't affect CSLB. However, the Solar Rights Act, which is the area of law that's being amended, is significant. It's used throughout the law and referenced by everyone all the time. And by changing the definition of solar energy system for the purposes of the Solar Rights Act and these permitting fee issues, the new definition, they would take it from structural design feature, which is kind of vague, a solar system structural design feature, to include a number of different works, such as solar carports, solar awnings, solar canopies, solar patios. These would all be a solar energy system for the purposes of the Solar Rights Act. Again, it doesn't amend the contractors law, but CSLB's thought here, staff thought, would potential concern or confusion among applicants for licensure or consumers or other contractors who say, well, look at this new definition, solar now includes all of these different structures, when in fact, as CSLB staff are aware, the new definitions in here would potentially involve multiple contractors' licenses to install, and therefore, for CSLB purposes, a carport would not be included in the definition of the solar energy system. So we asked the sponsors what they would think about an amendment here that would just state, hey, the change to this area of law does not affect CSLB licensing classifications. Something to that effect, which is on the bottom of page 209, we've written it out there. The sponsors did tell me that the sponsored representative did tell me that they believe the sponsors would not have a problem with this. However, I've not heard back from her as of this morning. So they have our suggestion. We don't know what they're going to do with it. And the staff recommendation is the same as the last one. To you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, looks like Nancy Springer. Hi, Nancy.
Hi there, how you doing?
Good. What do you got?
I just want to clarify. So I agree with making the amendment, but just in regards to building permits, what happens here is that they mix them. So they'll have solar that might go on a rooftop. And so we do require a structural permit for that because they're changing the roof to be able to enable the extra loading that it might have. So sometimes there's difference in permits for that, and that requires a general contractor typically to do that kind of work. So there is that confusion that could happen with this as to regards to what licenses need to do what work. In regards to the carports and stuff, that too, they may be integral to the individual carports, but they still have to do some type of construction work that would require that B contractor, as well as it may be that they're building a carport and then putting these on top of it. So it's not just cut and dry as they're saying for the permits. We do give the discount for the permit fees for solar, but we also have to look at the whole picture. So just kind of wanted to clarify that. And I do agree that the language needs to change to clarify for the license requirements.
And should this bill or should this motion pass, Chief, can you take that message back to the author?
Most certainly.
Okay. Anybody else on the board? I don't see any other hands. Nancy, your hand is still up.
Sorry.
That's okay. Shelley, do we have anything from the public?
I am not seeing any hands, chats, or Q&As right now.
Great. So the motion would be as before, to watch with a concurrent grant of authority for staff to later communicate an opposed position if this bill is not amended. Chair would entertain a motion.
Jim Wayne, so moved.
Second.
I got first to Jim, second to Nancy. Any questions on the motion from the board? Any question from the public, Shelley, on the motion?
Not at this time.
Hit it, please.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye. Aye.
Frank Altamura,
Yes.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
Ronnie Cobos,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza,
Aye.
Don Giarratano,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Michael Mark,
Yes.
Jim Wayne,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson is absent. Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Taggart.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Felice. The remainder of the bills in this section of the agenda, staff recommends simply staying neutral, not taking a position on the bills at this time. They're here for the board's information and any discussion if needed. So a motion is not required unless a board member would like to make one. Chief, do you have any information on these remaining bills at all?
Yes, just for informational purposes, the last four bills, as the chair stated, are board update items, but we do want to tell the board about them. And I'll try to burn through these. I'm hearing an echo. I don't know if it's on my end. Let me see here. All right, let's try this again. So 1129, it would place a home inspector licensing program at DCA. A home inspector bill has come out every few years. There's been, I think, around 8 in the last 15 or 20 years. Sometimes they're introduced to be at CSLB, sometimes they're not. So it's a significant issue for the legislature over the years, but there's not been a successful measure yet. This bill is here for the board's awareness. The board did provide a watch position on a similar bill before the pandemic that would have put a home inspector program at CSLB. This one, again, would place it in DCA as its own entity. And this bill is here because we wanted to make the board aware that we have received at least one question about whether contractors should be involved in home inspections or not. AB 1136, this bill is about PACE. The board should be aware because, as you heard through Mr. Albanese in the enforcement chair update, PACE remains to be an issue. PACE, of course, is the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. It does allow homeowners to finance clean energy upgrades, such as solar, through a tax assessment on their property. And of course, contractors are involved with that. Some important jurisdictional notes here. As everyone who is listening knows, the CSLB governs home improvement contracts and the installation of solar works and the licensees who do it, and the sale of home improvement contracts. However, CSLB does not regulate the PACE assessment contracts, the tax assessment agreement that you have to get into that are sold by people who sell solar. As a result, as has been touched on at various board meetings over the years, the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, formerly named the DBO, does identify and regulate PACE solicitors and PACE solicitor agents who sell these assessment contracts. The reason that's important for us is because these PACE solicitors and PACE solicitor agents, one of the thresholds for being one of those agents is having a contractor's license or an HIS registration with CSLB. So with all that background, this bill would allow the DFPI, or formerly DBO, to require these PACE solicitors and PACE solicitor agents to provide restitution for homeowners who are harmed by the sale of these PACE assessment contracts. Our thought, and our being staff's thought, would be if there's a bill that does this, it might help if CSLB was made aware if this occurs. So we want to tell the board about our thought to talk to the author to possibly amend the bill to say, FYI, if one of these actions is taken by DFPI against a CSLB licentiate, go ahead and tell CSLB so we can take appropriate action. So that's just our thought on that and the conversation that we intend to have with the author's office if there are no concerns. The last two bills here, they're both very similar. They would reduce licensing fees to help small businesses. I'm sorry, they would reduce civil penalty fees, not licensing fees. Civil penalties. So if you're subject to an enforcement complaint, 772, SB 772 hasn't been heard yet, but SB 430 did make its way to appropriations. We wanted to tell the board about these because in an effort to reduce civil penalties for small businesses, these bills are doing basically exactly the opposite of what CSLB is currently doing with one of its sponsored bills, which is to increase the civil penalty fees. Versions of these two bills have come out in the last couple of years and they have all died in appropriations. I can't say whether that'll happen this time, but I'm providing that information for the board to be aware of now. And these are here for the board to be aware that there are two bills that would require CSLB and other agencies to kind of reevaluate how they issue civil penalties. That is my update on those last four measures.
Thank you, Chief. Does anyone on the board have any questions on the last measures? Shelley, it looks like we have David Pace would like to comment.
We do. David, your line is open. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is David Pace. I am the legislative chair of the California Real Estate Inspection Association, known as CREA. We are the oldest and largest nonprofit state inspector association in the country, and California specific in education and consumer outreach. CREA strives to enhance consumer protection and promoting public awareness, and we are not opposed to licensing in concept. We are reviewing AB 1129 with our vision to protect lives, health, and investments, our mission of promoting excellence in real estate inspection profession, and our core values of integrity, competence, belonging, and passion. In our view, there are several essential components for any statutory scheme for licensure of home inspectors, and those include examination. The measure must require passage of an examination in order to qualify for licensure as a home inspector. Education. The measure should include provisions setting forth specific education necessary to obtain a license. Criminal background checks. In order to protect homeowners, the measure should include a requirement that a background check be performed on an individual who applies to become a licensed home inspector. Licensure fees. The measure should include or provide for licensure fees that are reasonable and at a level that does not diminish the ability of an individual to be successful in the profession. Errors and omissions insurance. The measure should include a requirement that insurance be maintained by a person licensed as a home inspector. Renewal cycle. There should be a specific renewal period or cycle. Standards of practice. The measure should include the standards of practice for individuals licensed as home inspectors. The standards of practice of the California Real Estate Inspection Association, as well as the American Society of Home Inspectors, are both recognized by the state of California. Continuing education. The measure should include a requirement that individuals licensed as home inspectors obtain at least 30 hours of continuing education on an annual basis provided by state-approved education providers. Grandfathering. The measure should include a provision providing
30
an
seconds.
exemption for the licensure requirements for those who have obtained a level of experience prior to the effective date of the requirements. Exemptions. There should be no exemption from the requirements of licensing for licensing building contractors, pest control operators, architects, or professional engineers. While those professions have expertise in their area of specialty, they may lack knowledge and experience outside of their specialty. Finally, regulating body. There should be a state regulating body to establish and implement policies and procedures. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. Anyone else from the public, Shelley?
Yes, Philip Vermillion would like to make a comment.
Go ahead.
Philip, your line
Thank
is
you,
open. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Phil Vermeulen. This time I'm going to speak on behalf of myself and 40 years of working with the Contractors Board on behalf of contractor trade associations. I agree with what the previous gentleman said. However, it makes absolutely no sense to reinvent the wheel and create a whole new bureaucracy and the expense and obtain the expertise when the Contractors Board is in existence. And every one of these inspectors should have, at the very minimum, a B general contractor's license in the background in construction, and possibly some kind of other certification, or carve out a new license classification that would contain the other things in there, such as appliances and all those types of things. To me, it makes absolutely no sense to reinvent the wheel. So I would urge the board to get on board with this bill and urge that it become a part of the Contractors Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Shelley?
Seeing no additional requests at this time.
Shelley, thank you very much for your help today. It's much appreciated. And I want to thank the board for their patience during this legislative report. The legislature has been a crazy place this year, trying to make up for last year and this year. So I know staff is combing through thousands, literally 2,500 bills this year. So thank you for that, Chief, and everyone who's helping him. And with that, this concludes the Legislative Committee update. Back to you, Chair.
Augie, Mike, thank you for that overview. This concludes our board business for today. There being no further agenda items, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe. Take care.
Thank you. Have a
Be
good day.
safe. Yes.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dave.
everyone. Take care.
Thank you.